Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Trucks on the road, they're running 24/7. It's like New York City, the city that never sleeps. Well, it's the occupation that never sleeps. Things need to be delivered. Sometimes it's essential items. We're going to talk with somebody who has dedicated his life to making sure that those trucks, big and small, on our roadways are operating safely, but with a different spin today. We're going to look at it when there's an emergency declaration, which can happen from time to time. Could be a hurricane during the summer, anything, snowstorms in the winter. And the government issues a declaration. Who's exempt? What happens with those motor carriers? His company is one that works with the companies that dispatch those motor carriers. And that's what he does. DOT Training Solutions, and Matt Freeman is back with us. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Hey, doing well, Steve. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm back again as always.
Yeah, I learned so much from you every time we get together, and we minimize what is going on out there. Last time or the time before we talked, the numbers, the millions of vehicles, the millions of drivers out there just amps up the need for safety. God forbid that these things aren't being adhered to. Now add another layer, an emergency declaration. How do you define emergency declaration?
Well, the declaration is set up either, through a state government or federal government. Whenever a disaster happens, it could be, again, like you said, be a hurricane. That's been the most common ones, for us: hurricanes, flooding, tornadoes, explosions that happen. The bridge just collapsed. We can talk about that for a minute. There was an emergency declaration put out for that. The government put one, for supplies to get to there, where they need to be. Could be steel. It could be anything. The declarations, just because of an emergency declaration put out by the governor of that state or the federal government, it goes back and supports it. It's not all the regulations that get accepted. It's only certain things that fall in the regulations when you're trying to get that relief effort to those places. That's the key in it, and that's why they write those. So the relief effort is given to get the supplies to where they need to be, depending on whatever it may be. Different industries, the electric could be out. Okay, so they need all the other states to come in and help. Getting electricity back up. So you're bringing power trucks or, boom trucks and different, folks to come in. This is an example.
Can you think of a recent example, or even the last couple of years, whatever, with an eye on what the specifics were in terms of motor carriers during an emergency? Things that were allowed, things that weren't allowed, or many times it's a stop. We hard stop, and I can't imagine that being the case though, because deliveries need to be made.
Yeah. So the biggest one that comes to mind is Katrina. It's been some years now. Really, to me, it doesn't seem like it's that long ago.
Right.
So I always, when I go to New Orleans, I'm thinking of, okay, where the flood happened at, and it was a long time ago, but it just seemed to me like it was yesterday because I was still in the government, doing my thing when that was going on. So all those declarations were out, so some of the things as an example is hours of service. Okay. We've talked about how important hours of service is, how regulated hours of service is for drivers. Drive so much on duty time, non-driving, off duty, sleeper berth, all that rest period and stuff. Well, that is usually one of the first ones that they relieve, give an exception to, because of the emergency, they don't care how long it takes you to get there. If it's transporting fuel, if you're transporting supplies, they got to be on the road. They got to get it there. Why? Because there is an emergency. So there's certain things, another thing is overweight. Okay. Permits, there could be, and I'm just saying, not for sure, but there could be, depending on what needed. So oversized generators. Okay. When they were doing stuff down at Katrina, they had to bring generators down. They had to bring the, to pick up and go homes, set up office spaces, set up things like that are portable, you know. So those are overweight dimension stuff. So permitting and things, that there may have been some exceptions there to allow those to go through faster, to make things happen. You're there, the declaration said, to come in and help the people as fast as they can, and as efficient as they can as well.
Let's focus on the weight situation, where now you're bringing in generators. They have to get delivered, especially Hurricane Katrina type disaster. What is the safety aspect of that? So now you got these big rigs. Now they've got generators. Now they're over the specified weight. Is there a little bit of safety concern there? I mean, my first thought would be certain types of roads, certain types of bridges.
Mm-hmm. So yes. Now they still have to follow those rules. You still have certain states only allow so much weight because of the way the roads are built. Okay, the infrastructure, whatever, of the roads. They still take those precautions. What they do is they speed those processes up. Sometimes it takes a little bit for those, but they speed those processes up. They use them more resources, to make sure they're getting there safely, right? But they speed the process up. A big one to go along with the generator side of it is fuel. Because when disasters happen, even if it's just a flood or a tornado goes through, you wipe out a gas station in a small town. Well, what happened? Or even a large city. Now, if they don't have fuel, they can't get around, they can't operate, they can't fix things. So you have a lot of folks who transport, gasoline, diesel, ethanol, all the things that keep things running. In those exceptions, to get there. For example, when there's something major like Katrina, you had all the states coming in to help and support, right? So you had your local electric, trucks, coming in with their booms and stuff, going down to help. They might have been an intrastate carrier only, not allowed out of the state because of what they do for the state, right? So authority, some of the things may have been authority. Okay, we're going to relieve the authority to assist, right? I'm only registered to stay in the state of Missouri or wherever you may be, Kansas, Kentucky, wherever it is. But I want to go down there and help. So now, depending on what service and how your service authority could be lifted, there's different things that can be. And again, it's more how big is the disaster.
What would you be comfortable with in terms of, I almost want to say, bending the rules during a disaster? What do you think is acceptable?
That's hard when you got to look at the safety side, but when you're looking at an emergency, you got to do what you got to do. Now, with that said, you got to get there as safely as possible.
Yep.
Right. So safety never goes out of effect. So yeah, is hours of service lifted for the drivers? It is. But you still got to think about reason. If you're fatigued, and you can't go no longer, stop. Okay. That's where you are communicating with your dispatch and letting them know. In some efforts, maybe there's a team driver because of that. Hey, we're driving across the country because we're the only service that's available. Maybe they do it, and I'm just using this as an example. Maybe they have a team driver that gives some of that relief, for the drivers. There's different ways they can do it. There's going to be a time frame. How quick do we need it down there? Do we need it down there yesterday, or do we need it here by Friday? Okay, so now we got 4 days to get there versus 1 day or 2 days. So they're going to look at that, and the motor carriers need to know what they can and can't do. Yeah, we're here to help, but it's going to take us X amount of days to get there safely, even with the hours of service lifted, for example.
Can we look at a disaster like Katrina, and what were your challenges there? What were some of the things that stand out? Now we're talking about easing the some of the safety regulations to get the job done, but what were some of the major challenges for motor carriers during a disaster like that?
Making sure there's enough fuel.
Fuel was a big thing.
Fuel was a big thing. Materials, making sure you had the right materials, these companies were able to provide the right materials, from a sand. I'm just using some examples, sandbagging. Make sure you got those materials down there. Building materials, because now you're building up a rebuilding. You got to rebuild, right?
Right.
You have efforts like FEMA and other uh, government agencies that come in and assist, but they got to get their supplies. So building materials could be an issue as well. Especially like if let's say there's a tornado that goes through. What's going to come in more than anything? Building materials. They got to rebuild. So those kind of supplies got to come in. So it's not always just fuel. It's materials that are needed
Wow.
during that disaster to rebuild that infrastructure.
Even something, my mind just clicks to different things. Even something as off your radar as plywood. So now you have broken windows. Now you have the potential for looting and security. So there's another reason why, we need to shore up our buildings. It's got to come from somewhere. Home Depot only has so much.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. These are the things we don't think about. We take it for granted.
It is. And one of the biggest things that I don't like to talk about that where the world, at least our country went crazy was, during the 9/11 bombings. And, the whole city was distraught, right? So, look at all the relief efforts that came in from all over the entire country to support that, to build that back up. So there was, that was where things are set up. You had to have those funds. A city of that size, how many people is there that need the assistance? Need to make sure we got fuel for those people, make sure the supplies are there to redo it. Food, right? You got your general freight and your reefer unit vehicles that have to transport food in. So there's a lot of different exceptions that are relieved during times of emergency, and that's what they call them, a declaration. Emergency declaration is what they call it. So it's it's a big deal that now just because there is an emergency doesn't mean that involves every single motor carrier. You're only relieved from that if you're involved with it. If you're providing assistance to that situation. So somebody in California doesn't get the hours of service exception because there's an emergency declaration. It is only going to be if they're moving to those areas when needed. So it's not everybody that gets it. It's just efforts and the folks that are involved with
For sure.
materials.
And 9/11, that's a great example. I'm 50 miles out of the city, not even. And the memories are flooding on back as you just mentioned that. And we even set up just one area at a radio station and just pulled people in and just collected. And then there were convoys of trucks bringing that in. But we forget about things like that, right down to, this is going to sound crazy, but little booties for these search and rescue dogs because their feet were getting all caught up. So things like things like we don't even think about need to get in some regard. That's just so much. There was so much going on during that time.
Yeah. So all those little things you're talking about, from general freight carriers bringing that product in, there was exceptions for them to get it there in a hurry.
Yeah.
That's an extreme example. Katrina's an extreme example.
For sure.
But those are times whenever those relief efforts, really people are, oh wow, those are needed. Wait a minute, I can't get there because I have to stop.
Right.
I had to get sleep. But no, they need me there yesterday. I got to get there. And just in every day in different states, I mean, phrase not every day, but different times in a month and year, whenever the storms and stuff come through, you have the fires certain times of the year. The governor of that state could, or even the president could set up an emergency declaration depending on how bad the disaster is for relief. So those, again, a lot of times it's usually hours of service, where the big regulations kick in because, time it means a lot at that point. So it really varies.
Yeah, more visuals. Like the entire city of New York was essentially shut down. You couldn't get in and out for a few days after 9/11 took place. And they were checking vehicles. for what you're transporting, cargo. Gosh forbid it's another explosive situation.
Hmm.
Wow. But, even right down to, the bridge collapse in Baltimore, a couple
Yes,
months
that's
ago.
my next thing I was going to bring up. Yeah,
Now,
I got the declaration here.
do you?
Yeah, I got it up right now. So
Yeah, let's go there because
yeah,
we don't see because we're not there the situation, but how do you get things transported and delivered?
yeah. So to give you an idea here, I just lost you here.
Yeah, I'm still here. You're here.
All right. No, I can't see sometimes. So just kind of give you an idea um, of what that looks like, So here's what a declaration looks like. This is kind of a good segue here for us. Let me see if I can share my screen. I'm just giving you an idea. So this is what they've done here. Here's a continuation of extension of the emergency declaration under 49 CFR 390.25. Okay. So some of that, um, let's see here. Going to go in here, relief efforts. Let me share my screen. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. Excuse me. Okay, you have to give me permission to share here,
Oh,
Steve.
okay. Oh, you know what? Okay, I wasn't even sure that you were actually going to share. No, we have to go through security right now, just like a vehicle going through a check.
I just a quick example. This is just
Oh,
what
this is
one
cool.
simulate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was put up by FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, right? So they pushed a continuation of extension of emergency declaration under 49 CFR 390.25. Okay, for the state of Maryland. All right, this is the bridge. All right. So you'll come in here and I'll have something about the background, why the declaration is put out, the applicability of what it's for, what's needed, reason they're doing it. Okay. For example, here, transportation of commodities rerouted due to disruptions to vessel traffic into port, subject to restrictions and conditions set forth in the extension. Okay, so it lays out what's needed and why it's needed. Okay.
Do you want to share? I've enabled it if you want to.
Oh, have I not? Oh, my bad. I thought I shared it.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
And there we go.
All right. So here, let me
Awesome.
back up here. So again, as you can see here, like I said, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, put
Sure.
this out, FMCSA. This is this was just released June 20th, so 5 days ago. This is a
Wow.
continuation of extension of emergency declaration, again, under 49 CFR, which is the DOT regulations.
Sure.
Okay. They give you a little bit of background on, what's happened here. They'll put an applicability of, what's needed here, what they're doing. I just read this one off. This one is for transportation related to the immediate restoration of essential services at the Port of Baltimore. So, for example, motor carriers coming in to assist that supplies that they're needing specifically for that port. There's where these exceptions are going to kick in. Okay. So again, if you're on the other side of the country or north or south or wherever you may be, and you're nowhere near this, these aren't going to affect you. It's only when you using the relief efforts for here. Okay. I'm going to go down to the transportation side here, and we kick into here we go, hours of service. Like I was talking about, relief from 395.3 is the maximum driving time for property carrying vehicles. So here they've extended it, or they're allowing them to move forward. One of the things it also talks about is we talked about electronic logging devices, within our series here that helps keep track of their time. Now, one of the things it says here, if they have an ELD, they don't have to have the ELD to get the services to where they need to go, even though it's required. There's an exception there.
Wow.
Okay. So just little things like this here, but when you see these declarations, now obviously this extension is only 4 pages here, right? And then it's signed off by the acting administrator for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So it's always signed off by an official. So that's kind of an idea of what one of the declarations would look like. Now, this is the extension, but it was just a quick pull. I could show you guys what they're doing.
Thank you for that. And I had no idea that it was so recent that they extended it. In my mind, yeah, that was then. Things are back reasonably back to normal.
Mhm.
But not so much. And the cargo's got to get through. Wow.
Yeah. So just think about some of these disasters or these natural things that happen could last longer. Again, flooding, tornadoes,
Wow.
all the different things, explosions. You hear about, here's a good example. We had was it Palestine, in the U.S. here, the city that, had the train derail. Okay. So, I don't remember if there was a declaration sent for fund, for sources there, but that was a disaster as well. So, I
Mm,
mean, there's different things it would cause, and depending, what's going on, you can see the different types of relief that they give uh, for the motor carrier industry.
100%. I'm seeing this, even just the time frame. I totally forgot about that. I didn't even consider that. You think it happens and then, a few days, week, whatever, but it could go on for a long time, i.e. Baltimore, where I don't even know the status of that bridge. I haven't kept tabs on that.
Yeah, I haven't either. So,
Wow. Amazing.
and,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say anything like that, especially a bridge, that's immediate. We got to get this fixed. We can't let this thing lay. And I know the push is to really. I did hear a thing on the news not too long ago with the governor there talking about how they were trying to really make this, progression and get this thing going and up and running again. So as quickly as possible.
Unbelievable. This is just a piece of what you do. This is all on your radar and your team. And I got to believe too, you have to swing into action when disaster hits in case clients have questions.
Yes.
It's everything's new territory. Even if you went through a Katrina tomorrow, gosh forbid, another hurricane rolls on through, different logistics. Let's say that one is a wall of water. I'm on Long Island, New York, Superstorm Sandy, 2012. That
Yeah.
was, another one where it wasn't the wind so much. It was all about the water.
Yep.
Mm,
Yep.
wow.
And water's another big one. You got to have fresh water for people to drink and keep moving, so just transporting water is a big deal, so
This
yeah.
is stuff. It is. This is the stuff we don't think about because
Yeah.
wow, interesting. Somebody's watching, somebody's listening. They're with a motor carrier company, or maybe with one safety company. They're not really happy with the results. How do they reach out to you? How do they find you, Matt?
Yeah, they can reach us, as I always say. They can go to our website, dottrainingsolutions.com. A couple things there. We have an info at DOT Training Solutions. You can reach out there, ask for questions, and we'll get right back with you on that. A couple of direct numbers I'll give you is I'll give you my direct number, 573 416 8203. And I'll also give you my direct email. I love hearing from customers and potentials. It's Matt, MATT, at dottrainingsolutions.com.
And that's the difference. You make yourself available.
Always.
Yeah, it's that important. Matt, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate all the details, the insight, the information, and have a good trip to Houston. I know you're traveling to work with some other clients, and we'll catch up soon.
All right. Hey, thanks, Steve. See you next time.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.